the same. Everybody's got their lines they don't cross until things get messy. As far as I'm concerned, if you can make it through your day and still sleep at night, you're doing better than most.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Character Study. In this series, I take a deep dive into the characters of the Star Wars universe and try to analyze them both psychologically and narratively. My name is The Goldman, and today we're going to look at Migs Mayfeld, aka Bill Burr from The Mandalorian. Mayfeld has appeared so far in 2 episodes, Chapter 6, The Prisoner, and Chapter 15, The Believer. Mayfeld's introduction to the story is very similar to characters we've seen before. Because of this, we don't think too much about his backstory and some of the emotional struggles he has been through. But as we learn later on, he has been dealing with trauma. Off the bat, Mayfeld is a likable character. He's funny, making references to the other movies.
Maybe he's a gungan. Is that why you so don't want to show your face?
And he's also skilled. Mayfeld is a former imperial sharpshooter, something that we don't think of that much at first, but as we learn later on plays a critical role in his backstory. While he may be fun to watch, we can all agree that in the first episode at least, he is a pretty bad person.
Get that blaster out of my face, Mando.
Mayfeld was so bad that he didn't even consider destroying the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Did you know that the more people that hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, the sooner Mandalorian Season 3 will come out? Also, it really does help out with the channel, so I'd greatly appreciate it. I would say the most character-defining scene in the first episode would be the confrontation with the New Republic officer, played by Matt Lanter, the voice of Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars, and the rest of the crew. In story, the most powerful conflict that can exist is not the physical conflict between two characters, but the moral conflict between two characters. Mando believes that the life of the New Republic officer should be spared. While having a gray moral compass being a bounty hunter, Mando has shown to be a person with compassion. This is the basis of his relationship with Grogu. Mayfeld, on the other hand, wants to kill the officer because he knows the officer poses a threat to their operation. This scene is important because it establishes the foundation of their relationship, which is further explored in Chapter 15. After some arguing, Zeon the Twi'lek kills the officer, and while Mayfeld may not have done it himself, he approves. The first episode when it comes to Mayfeld is really mostly set up for his second appearance in Season 2. Besides being more of a jerk to Mando, we didn't learn much else about him. Contrast this to Chapter 15 and we learn a lot about Mayfeld. Grogu is missing and Mando needs a way to find him. Since Mayfeld is a former Imperial in prison and Cara Dune is a ranger for the New Republic, he hopes he can find Mayfeld and use his knowledge of the Empire to find Grogu. At the beginning of the episode, that's all that Mayfeld is to Mando, a former Imperial. This is also how Cara Dune sees Mayfeld.
You sure do know a lot about Imperial remnants.
Hey, if you want to accuse me of something, then just say it.
One thing I noticed is that there's a lot of judging a book by its cover in the beginning of this episode. Cara Dune and Mando refuse to show any ounce of respect to Mayfeld in the beginning of the episode because he is a former Imperial. When confronted with this, Mayfeld kind of defends himself because he doesn't want to be perceived as an Imperial.
Why am I so lucky?
Because you're Imperial.
Hey, that was a long time ago, all right?
What's interesting here, and we don't realize this at first, is that to begin, Mayfeld isn't so much defending himself as he is trying to bury his trauma. Mayfeld's reaction here is something we can all empathize with, and that's being labeled with a negative connotation. We've all been prejudged before based off of a group we may have belonged to. We see this very often in political discourse. When Mayfeld suggests he goes alone, Cara Dune immediately shuts him down, thinking he will alert the Empire to their presence.
Great, so it's me going in alone.
No way. The minute he gets inside, he'll tip him off. He'll be a hero.
Hey, this wasn't my idea.
Cara Dune has this belief, once an Imperial, always an Imperial. And this, as we learn later on, is an unfair assessment. Regardless, Mayfeld is briefed on the mission and agrees to join. What's interesting at first, and it kind of threw me off, is kind of how unfair this deal is. I mean, why would Mayfeld accept this deal?
Well, then what's in it for me?
You get a better view.
Mayfeld won't be let out of prison if he helps, he'll just simply be given a better view. Is this something that Mayfeld would likely risk his life for? I don't think so. But as we learn, Mayfeld isn't doing this for Mando or Grogu. He's doing it for himself, but not in a selfish way. Mayfeld has some unresolved trauma that he hasn't dealt with. A lack of closure is a thing that can really haunt some people. With Mayfeld, he probably gave years of his life to serving the Empire, only for them to partake in a mission that involved the deaths of millions of innocent people. Mayfeld was part of Operation Operation Cinder, something we see in Battlefront 2. The reasons behind Operation Cinder are rather complicated, but all you need to know is that a lot of civilians and soldiers died. Essentially, the Empire sacrificed their own men for this operation. Mayfeld survived Operation Cinder clearly, but he never confronted anyone about what he went through and never expressed his emotions. Bottling up emotions can be something that is very dangerous, and we see this is something that Mayfeld is going through. This is also what Ben Solo struggled with after murdering his father, which is why we get that redemption scene in The Rise of Skywalker, which is a brilliant scene. The most important scene for Migs Mayfeld is when he and Mando are on the transport truck. For a while there, Mayfeld tries to make small talk with Mando, and it's pretty funny.
Feels better when it's off.
Mando does not want to communicate with Mayfeld. He sees Mayfeld as this former Imperial, the scumbag that we saw in the first season, and has no intention of conversing with him other than discussing the mission. He doesn't respect Mayfeld, and he doesn't want to associate with him. They end up driving past a town that looks upon the truck with disdain. Mayfeld is bothered that Mando sees him as a bad person, because Mayfeld doesn't think he's a bad person. So he tries to explain to Mando his worldview and how gray the world really is.
I'm just saying, somewhere someone in this galaxy is ruling and others are being ruled.
Mayfeld goes on to make an analogy between the Mandalorians and the Empire, and it's an analogy that he hopes Mando will understand.
Do you really think all those people that died in wars fought by Mandalorians actually had a choice? So how are they any different than the Empire?
I love this analogy because Mayfeld has a point. How many people who have fought in wars really believed what they were fighting for? Rebels likely fight for what they believe in, but what about stormtroopers? This is what The Force Awakens explored through Finn. Mayfeld makes the case that he and Mando are the same, and this clearly bothers Mando.
Hey, I'm just a realist. I'm a survivor, just like you.
Let's get one thing straight. You and I are nothing alike.
Mayfeld makes another point, kind of exposing Mando and his Mandalorian code when it comes to his helmet, but he's doing it not so much to get under Mando's skin, but he's trying to get through to Mando.
You said you couldn't take your helmet off, and now you got a stormtrooper one on, so what's the rule? Is it that you can't take off your Mando helmet, or you can't show your face? Because there is a difference.
We all have beliefs. We all have morals. I don't remember where I heard this from, but I heard a quote that was like, it's easily to be morally right when you're not the one making tough decisions. It's the reason why there's the saying, money corrupts. It's easy to tell people not to do things for money or not to sell out for money, but when you're in that situation being offered lots of money to do something, you start to move the goalposts as to what's morally right for you. Mayfeld doesn't specifically mention how his code changed when he was desperate, but it definitely has to do with something he isn't proud of. What he's referencing is probably one of two things. Either that he was desperate and he joined the Empire because he needed money and he needed a way to live, or after he left the Empire, again, he needed money, so he became the pirate that we saw in the first season. Either way, I think he makes a fantastic point.
Everybody's got their lines they don't cross until things get messy. As far as I'm concerned, if you can make it through your day and still sleep at night, you're doing better than most.
This is probably the most important quote in the episode, and it's something that all the viewers can agree with. We all make decisions in our daily lives, whether or not we believe it or not, just so we can sleep better at night. For example, the fact that there are dogs and other animals neglected and abused every day really infuriates me, but I choose not to think about it because if I did think about the horrors of the world, I would be a miserable person. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are the same way. I'm gonna fast forward through the chase scene because we don't learn more about Mayfeld here during this fight, even though it is a great fight. The next scene I want to talk about, which you can also argue is the most important scene in the movie, is when Mando and Mayfeld are in the Imperial cafeteria. The most important thing about this scene is obviously Mando removing his helmet. Mando taking off his helmet also proves Mayfeld's point about changing the goalposts when you're desperate. I could go on for hours about why this is such a great moment for his character, but this is not a video on Mando. Mayfeld's response to Mando removing his helmet shows that people are complicated. We saw Mayfeld do some pretty bad things in his first episode, but in this episode, we see him do some incredibly selfless things. Mayfeld has always treated Mando's code as a joke. He would make comments in season 1 about what's under Mando's helmet, and even in the beginning of this episode, he laughed laughed when he saw Mando in the Stormtrooper armor. I'm gonna jump forward a little bit because when Mayfeld gives the helmet back to Mando after he kills the Imperial officer, he says and does something that is incredibly selfless.
You did what you had to do. I never saw your face.
As much as Mayfeld has made fun of Mando for his code, at the end of the day, he knows how important it is to him. So without a second thought, he hands Mando the helmet without getting one last look, if you will. The subtle acting of Bill Burr looking away when he hands Mando the helmet shows that deep down there is a good person inside Mayfeld. And this is a theme of Star Wars. There's good in all of us, there's bad in all of us, but it's about how we act that matters. Rewinding the clock a little bit, Mando and Mayfeld sit in front of not any Imperial officer, but the one who likely sent Mayfeld on the mission that has traumatized him. This scene honestly may have some of the best dialogue in the entire series. The Star Wars series, not just The Mandalorian. Mayfeld is able to confront the ghost of his past, something that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do. He's finally letting out all those inner emotions he's held for so long, and that can be something that's very therapeutic for a person.
We lost our whole division that day. Man, that was like 10,000 people.
Yep. All heroes of the Empire.
Yeah. And all dead.
As I said, what Mayfeld is doing right now can be very therapeutic, but also very dangerous. This officer represents the source of all of Mayfeld's problems, and he's looking for the officer to show some remorse, some acknowledgement of wrongdoing. This is the closure that Mayfeld is looking for so he can finally sleep at night.
The guys I served with, civilians, those poor mud scuffers, died defending their homes, fighting for freedom. Was it good for them?
What follows is the dangerous aspect of closure that I previously talked about. I can't play the whole scene, but what we see here with Mayfeld is what I'm guessing is a mixture of PTSD and just pure anger. The officer says something along the lines of Operation Cinder not even comparing to what the Empire is going to do.
You see, with the Redonium you've delivered, we can create havoc that's gonna make Burning Khan just pale by comparison.
Mayfeld realizes that there's no admission of wrongdoing, no remorse, no guilt, and that this officer is going to continue to cause a lot of pain. And this makes Mayfeld crack.
To the Empire.
I love this scene because it shows Mayfeld as a human being. Was it smart to kill an Imperial officer in an Imperial facility? Probably not. But Mayfeld is a human being. He has emotions, and right then and there, he was at his most emotional, so it makes sense that he makes a rash decision. Mayfeld is a human being that experienced trauma, and he acted in a way that was true to his character. The last thing I want to show is a very quick line of dialogue that a lot of people might have missed.
We all need to sleep at night.
I love this line of dialogue, not only because it harkens back to what Mayfeld said in the beginning of the episode, but because it summarizes all of Mayfeld's motivations in 7 words. The episode ends with Cara Dune and Mando agreeing to let Mayfeld go. They see that he's not the evil Imperial that they thought, but a man who deep down may be a good person. What can people learn from Mayfeld? What can writers learn from Mayfeld? Mayfeld shows us that people are complicated. Some people may do bad things, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. It's easy to put people in a group that you don't like simply because of their past or what they may believe. But behind every person is a past, and some of those pasts may be traumatic to those people. Mando and Cara Dune realize there's more to Mayfeld than what they thought, so they decide to let him go because they see he's a good person. I would say this episode is probably my favorite in the series. It does a lot of great things that don't have to do with Mayfeld, but the transformation of Mayfeld from season 1 to this season is my favorite aspect of this episode. I want you guys to let me know what you thought about this video. Do you like the character of Mayfeld? Did you like this episode? Because I love both. Also, what characters do you want to see me cover? Because I want to cover characters that you guys want to learn about. The next character I'll be doing a character study for is Kylo Ren, so stay tuned for that. Thank you everyone so much for watching another one of my videos. Don't forget to unite the Claude Squad, and I will see you guys next time.